Now, hold on. Before I get to anything,
What's up?
first of all, hello.
How are you? How's your
Are
family?
you wearing the gray sweatpants?
I got my my COVID-19,
I
and
like it. I can see the tops. There we go. There we go.
oh, I hit my head on
Yes.
the ceiling.
Yes.
Yeah,
For those wondering why I want to know what Tim's wearing, I mean, hopefully you saw the video he put out earlier, but click on his bio or his handle later. You can see his little fashion show, his NBA fashion show. So you've been wearing the same pants for about 3 weeks.
yeah. I've been rocking the same six, and I'm lucky I got 6 pairs of track pants. Like I don't know how many people have 6 pairs of track pants, but I've been rocking the same 6 pairs of track pants in like a rotation. In fact, I've narrowed it down to really 3 favorites, so it's not really 6. It's like 3.
Well, and Dan Shulman, he said earlier today too on I think it was on Twitter. Are you in the rotation now? I mean, you've obviously got a new T-shirt, but it's like basically the same, maybe 5 or 6 T-shirts that just sort of get washed, and you never get lower in the pile in the drawer. You just keep going back to the same ones that are on top.
Yeah, you got
Yeah,
you got like 5 go-tos that are really comfortable. Some of them aren't made for going outside, but you just rock over and over that's really comfortable. So that's where I'm at right now. But this is something that I
yes,
believe in, that I got in early on, and I can't believe how far they've come. So if you ever want to check out Conquer COVID, and listen, like Ryan Reynolds and Haley Wickenheiser and all these
yeah,
big, huge names that were in on it. But when I first was reading about them, it was just these like young kids on their front page along with Haley Wickenheiser, and I was inspired by them. And it's nice to see other people are getting inspired by it. And they got a bunch of people wearing this shirt today that have bigger names than me. But I love the "Where's DJ and Brendan," which pops up right.
Oh,
Just,
and the guy right below with the Z's. I think he's going to sleep or something. This guy's been on a couple of nights, so now he's getting the attention that he probably wants to have because he's
yeah,
been he's been saying that it's been boring or something. But hey, I've been having a good time doing this, and we're not going to please everybody. Last night,
no,
Cabby was on, so we're gonna hopefully get into some other stories that you can tell us from the score days. But I want to start with you, and this is what I've kind of been doing with the guys I've had on. I've had Free John and Devlin, and Jeremy Taggart was on the other night. Cabby, as
yeah,
I mentioned. I find it interesting to get into guys' stories of where they started, and for you, even going back to high school, as I've said to everybody to this point, I'm not going to sit here and try and go dig into your childhood and high school and everything else, but for a guy that played high school football and then, correct me if I'm wrong, got banged up in a few injuries, was it this sort of epiphany for you, Timmy, at a fairly young age where, like a lot of us, if you couldn't play sports, you still wanted to be attached to the game somehow. If I couldn't play the game, I want to
yeah,
at least be talking about the game. Is that kind of where your motivation lied in terms of going to post-secondary and ultimately going to journalism school?
yeah. To me, actually, I as the youngest of 4 boys, I knew I wasn't a good enough athlete in probably grade 9. Like I was the kind of athlete that a coach liked, but when I was probably like the 8th fastest dude on my team, and I was always like hockey. I was good, but not great. So I knew I was a good high school athlete, but I knew enough about sports that I knew I wasn't going to be, like I had a brother that was a really good running back, and I knew I was never close to him. Like he was, he was probably like he was in the tens in the 100 meter, and there's no chance that I would get into the tens in the 100 meter, stuff like that. So I knew enough about sports and knew I was crap. So I always I was like, so how can I stay close? And my first thought was I could be a cameraman or a camera person. And then I think it was valedictorian of like my grade 8 class, which is, and I had a speech and I kind of liked it. And I was like, okay, so maybe that's, like I started thinking along those lines. So completely. I just love sports. As you can tell behind me, like I love every sport. Like I am, if you made me choose one, I would fight you till I died. Like I love sports and I want to stay close to it. So it was like, whatever I can do. And like I grew up in a hockey family, but I loved basketball and football. I guess we were a hockey football family. But as you know, I love basketball, I love football, I love baseball. My son's probably best at baseball, and so I'm kind of relearning. I was probably naturally gifted at baseball more than anything else because I had hand-eye. but that, like, none of it I was good at.
You know, the cool thing with that, though, too, and I've said this oftentimes before, is I marvel at what, you know, young people today have to do. Because, I mean, we only had that one extra year, but we had grade 13. So you had that extra year to decide. You see kids now in grade 12 coming out at maybe 17 years old, 18 years old. And if you end up going to, well, I mean, college or university, it's still only generally an extra year, but a 3-year program, and you could be potentially 20, 21 years old at most, and suddenly now the rest of your life is in front of you. That's why I often will say that I was lucky that I knew what I wanted to do at a young age, and then I ultimately went for that. Right. And then when I ultimately got there, it actually was what I wanted to do. Because it's one thing, as you said, in grade 7, grade 8, grade 9, whatever it might be, it's one thing to think that's what you want to do, but suddenly 3-4 years later, is that really what you wanted to do? And now you've committed to a school, you've committed to a program, you're suddenly in your studies. And are you going to stay on that path, or are you going to shift gears? Now you've kind of derailed your collegiate career, your university career. Now you're going into a different program, you're spinning your wheels, or you stick with it, you graduate and go, holy hell, this is not what I want to do. So you've really got to be lucky to decide at a fairly young age that what you want to do is truly what you want to do for the rest of your life.
Yeah, if someone gave me the reins, I'd put grade 13 right back in. Like, I think that's a huge year. In spec, they do SAJUP, which is after grade 11, they go like a grade 12, 13, maybe even 14, depending on your situation. And I think there's such formative years. I really believe that the education system would be way better off if people had a grade 13. And I don't know if you did what I did, but I had like 2 classes in my grade 13 year. It was like a half semester. We were a semester school, so I went to like 2 classes and 2 classes and just tried to find myself. And if I didn't have that, honestly, I would have, I mean, I ended up dropping out of university anyway, but I would have been lost in my first year for sure.
You know, I found for me that grade 13, at least, I didn't take a semester off or even a year off. I went right from high school into college. But I know that my last semester in high school, I believe it was home ec. I'm like 99% sure it was home ec. It was, I mean, a class I did not care about, but I just had to take the class in order to stay enrolled, in order to have enough credits to not only stay in school for that semester, but to be able to play on the baseball team. And our principal was one of the assistant coaches on the team, and he knew full well I was only taking that class just to be able to play baseball and to stay in the school. And Jen Quinn, who is now the director of media relations for the Toronto Raptors, her mother was my high school English teacher, and she was my English teacher in that last semester as well, and I never went to class. And Mrs. Quinn was my favorite. I would still be in the school, but I'd be hanging out in the student council office or in the cafeteria or wherever it was. I just was not in class. And the amount of days where I'd, you know, be kicking back and, you know, the feet up on the table, and I get a little tap, tap, tap on the shoulder. I look back and, oh, hey, Mrs. Quinn. She's like, this assignment is due tomorrow if you care to show up to class or if you'd like to turn it in or whatever. It was just like, it was just so relaxed. So I think I was finding myself within the school. But to your point, it's just like you need that sort of bridge, I think, just to have not everything overwhelm you at such a young age. I feel for young adults right now that are going through that. I've got a nephew that's 20 years old. He'd be turning 20 this summer. He's got 1 year of school left. And I look at him thinking, you really? Like, you ready for this next step and ready to kind of hit the world running? And it's got to be daunting right now.
Yeah, agreed.
All right.
So what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Are you doing questions? Like, I keep looking at these comments down here and all the by the way, shut up, Malta. Like, I'm glad. Yep. Like, how are you doing these things?
I'm doing this with due respect to the people watching. I appreciate them watching. I find it hard to look at you through the camera and to be doing this. Otherwise, I'm not even listening to you. I'm looking down and not paying attention. So I'm talking to you, and if I happen to catch the odd question from time to time, I'll try to incorporate the audience. But to me, this is me and you having a conversation. I'm interviewing you, and I'll do my best to incorporate stuff and give some shout-outs from time to time.
Figures Smitty is on the part where the comments aren't rolling over his face.
I don't know if I can flip that.
I'm just kidding.
I don't know if I can do that.
Yeah, sure.
When I come on your feed, you'll be up top.
All right.
And I'm on the bottom, and then I get hammered by it. You know, Damon Allen's actually watching right now. And nice. One of the comments that Damon just mentioned, and as I said, I don't know if I don't know if Damon heard me off the top, but I want to get Damon on maybe next week or in the next couple of weeks. And he had on Andre Reed earlier today on his show. Brendan Dunlop's watching, so shout out to BD as well. But one of the things that Damon was just saying, as we were talking more scholastically, he was talking from an athletic standpoint too about in high school where you're afforded that opportunity then to play other sports, to try and find yourself even athletically and expose yourself to other sports. And that's something that Cabby and I got into last night as well. You know, I was telling him a story about an interview I was supposed to be doing with Wayne Gretzky in the finals last year, and it was Game 5. KD gets hurt, and I end up spending 3/4 of the game in the back trying to track down the latest information on Durant, and totally unintentionally blew off Wayne for the interview. So Cabby said, what's the question you would have wanted to ask him? And I said, one of the questions I wanted to ask was to kind of play into how, you know, Wayne used to talk about how baseball was his game. And had he actually got to choose, he would have loved to have played baseball even more so than hockey. And how does he feel now about young athletes in Canada that are being exposed to so many different sports beyond just a couple, beyond, you know, baseball, lacrosse, and obviously hockey, and the groundswell and the popularity of basketball, of soccer over the last 10, 20 years in this country. And that it sort of led Cabby and I down that path, Timmy, of it seems like, and I'm speaking to you now as a father too, I don't know how you deal with your kids. So many families, so many parents seem focused now on one sport for their kid. And even if they want to say, no, I'm going to be open to them playing multiple sports, you see the kid next door and he's doing, on-land training or, off-ice training. And then there's another kid that's playing baseball in the wintertime in a gymnasium. And then there's another kid that's playing year-round basketball. And you think, well, if my kid's not doing that, he or she's going to slip behind. And if they slip behind, they're not going to make that rep team or that AAA team. And if they don't make that, then they're just in house league. And if they're just in house league, then is this really going to progress? So we get caught in that mindset of one sport, one sport, one sport. And I think that's to a detriment to the kids.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think Damon just said the same thing again, and I got people chirping me to stop reading the comments. So I'll stop reading the comments because they can see my eyes scrolling with the comments. But yeah, my son plays AAA baseball and he plays single A hockey. And there were times before this global pandemic hit us where I sat down with this hockey coach and we were trying to figure it out. And there were times where he had 8 or 9 different commitments a week for those two sports. And his baseball coach played AAA hockey and AAA baseball growing up. And I was like, there's no chance that you could do that now. And he's like, yeah, no, you're right. And it's just like our 12 months a year for every sport is like, I know there's examples of where it worked for kids, but 98 times out of 100, the kid's either a good enough athlete or he or she is not. And that's just what it is. And I think if we opened it up where more kids could play more sports and it was less about money, then everyone would be better off. But we all know that there's a lot of money being made, right?
Yeah, and I think there's still, unfairly, a stigma now as a result of, as I say, the reps, the AAAs, and whatever sport. I'm not just talking hockey. I'm talking any sport, where there's now this stigma that, well, house league isn't good enough. And maybe to some extent, sometimes that could be the case because maybe the best coaches aren't around, because those coaches now are getting paid in other sports to be coaching at higher levels, or they're putting their focus and attention on
murals, like outside of Dean here, who did anything with the sports that I love sport. Like, I gave a from grade 9 to grade 13, like I worked hard at sports. Like I ran hills. I worked out like from grade 10 to grade 13. I worked out like old school. We used to do 2 hours in the gym 5 days a week. Like that was, and I wasn't going to do anything with it. The numbers are astonishing. Like if you play university sport, you're a good athlete. So the numbers tell us we're all going to end up together playing the same men's league. So why not just enjoy it? Like that's what I always say to my son. Like if you want to work at it. If you don't want to work at it, you're not going to be as good. But the whole point is to enjoy it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like enjoy working. The only people that make it are the ones who are ridiculous athletes, close to obsessive compulsive or enjoy practicing all the time. Like, and I don't know about you, but I didn't enjoy it. I just did it because I wanted to be good.
Yeah, and I say this with my son all the time now. Like he's been playing guitar for about a year, and I
Yeah.
can tell that he doesn't love it, but he likes it, and he loves it for an hour a week when the teacher's there, and he's getting positive feedback, and he's thinking he's rolling, and he is. But then he doesn't want to practice in between. And I've said to him, listen, if you don't ever end up being a rock star, a musician, it doesn't matter. But can you pick up the guitar and play to your kids one day? Can you play around a campfire? Can
Right.
you just screw around in your free time when maybe it's just an outlet for you mentally, just to get away from your life, from your work, from whatever it may be, and just, strum on the guitar for a bit and maybe sing a song or something just for fun, just as an outlet. It doesn't have to be like, don't look at this as a chore that we've added to your plate. Just take the fun of it. And even if it never becomes anything, that's cool. Just enjoy like, I never have played an instrument in my life. I'm jealous of it. Maybe that's what I should be doing right now during this quarantine, is learn how to do something, to play something. Because that's something I missed out on, I think, not picking up guitar, piano, something at a young age. And that's, to me, what I think it is for a lot of people. To your point, sports, it's an outlet. It doesn't matter if you're the best, but can you find something that you're just good at, not even great at, just good enough to kind of hang, to be able to play with your buddies, to be able to play with your friends. Yeah.
Yeah, I was the most. I had way too much confidence growing up for what I actually was, and it all came from sports. Like every piece of it came from sports or being around sports, and it was all false confidence. Like there was no real reason for me. I know guys in university that came up to me after and said, like, "How were you so confident?" Like, I didn't even realize I was confident. I was just trying to be me, and I think I got all that from sport. Like everything that work ethic, confidence, ability to be a good team, all of that has come from sports. Like every single bit of it has come from sports, and I've just been able to apply it elsewhere.
All right. The decision to go to Carleton,
Mm-hmm.
were there other schools on your list, or coming out of high school, was that the spot for you, and that's where you wanted to be more than anything else?
I didn't get into Ryerson. I wanted to go to RTA, Ryerson, and I was an honor roll student, and I didn't get in there. I must have really screwed up the written portion of it.
How did Cabby get into Ryerson and you didn't?
Gabby got in. Sid got declined for Ryerson too, but his marks weren't as good as mine. Like to get into Carleton journalism, you needed, I think, like an 84, and I got into Carleton journalism, but I didn't get into Ryerson. It was actually a funny story. My brother called the dean of students at Ryerson to tell him he made a huge mistake. They wouldn't let him through. So I was going to actually do the victory lap in high school. I was going to go back to high school, play football, play hockey, and play baseball for one more year. I don't know if I would have made it to baseball season, but I was going to do the victory lap and try and get into Ryerson again. I had unfortunately lost my brother when I was 16, my oldest brother. And I thought maybe going away would be a good thing for me to kind of find some sort of, I don't know, again, find myself after the grade 13 year. So I was kind of going back and forth between the victory lap, and I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, I'm not good enough at football. Screw it. I'll just go to journalism at Carleton and give it a shot there.
Now, I'm fast forwarding through the college years, unless there's like something you really want to hit on from the college years. But you mentioned your brother, and I was going to get to this a little bit later, but I want to, if I can ask you respectfully, how much did his passing tie into continuing to maybe even further your love for sports and what you ultimately were now doing and trying to do in journalism school, coming out of journalism school and graduating and trying to find a job in the industry, and then latching on to the youth sports and especially to football and all that you've done within the football landscape in your career?
Yeah, I think when you go through the grieving process at a young age, you have no real idea what you're doing. And I didn't. And the only thing that I got was do something you love, because if you don't, you're just going to waste your time. And that, you never work a day in your life. You do work a day in your life. Like sometimes we work pretty hard days in a stupid field, and we're a lucky field. But I was probably lost for like 3 years, 4 years, maybe even more than that. 16, 22, probably like 5 or 6 years. I was just lost. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I was selling cell phones, but I knew in my head at, grade 9, this is kind of where I wanted to be. And then it took me a few years after my brother passed to realize, oh, maybe I should just try it. And I was a cold call to the score out of the blue. I had dropped out of university. I was hawking cell phones for Bell Mobility. Shout out the Shepherd Center at Young and Shepherd if anyone was in and around that area. I would sell you your StarTech. Do you remember the StarTech? It was like
I do, yes.
the first little one, and it was like a flip phone, and it was like, oh, no, you're not. No, it's just anyways, I did that, and it was funny because I couldn't, and hopefully my old boss isn't watching, but I couldn't rip people off. So like I would say, like, just wait like 2 days and then come back, and there'll be a better deal, and you get the phone for free, and this phone sucks. Just wait a little while and then come back and see me, and we'll see if we can get you a deal. And it didn't work that well. And yes, Joey Soundquest, shout out the Motorola StarTech. So I was doing that, and I was like, I gotta get in somewhere, and it refocused me. And the love for OUA and CIS and all the university sports that I ended up covering were definitely, first off, I loved doing it, and I wanted to do play-by-play for a long time, but it was definitely a tip of the cap. My brother played running back at Western, and on some pretty good teams like Blake Marshall, Dwayne Ford. That was around the time when he was there. And so I always thought, like, okay, I'll just keep doing this as a tip of the cap to my brother. And I also thought, like my brother was a 220-pound running back who ran a 4.5 and couldn't get a scholarship. Like Bowling Green said, we might give you a half ride in football, but will you play hockey too? Like that's how scholarships work back then. And I was like, these kids are way better athletes than anyone knows.
Yeah.
And I think we started to see that a little bit in the last little while, like with Carleton beating like legit NCAA schools and stuff like that. We're starting to understand that, but it was kind of like a mix of the both. These kids are way better athletes, and I know it, and I want to give them some love, and it's a bit of a cap to my brother. But it definitely did focus me to answer.
Let me ask you, what led though to you coming out of that rut, that funk that you were in, to ultimately lead to a cold call? Because I mean, something you had to have that epiphany, I would assume, one day where you woke up and said, all right, enough is enough. If you were, to your own words, by your own admission, you're in a rut, you drop out of school, then you're just literally, I got the balls one day to pick up the phone and say, even though I dropped out, here I am, give me a shot. How does that work?
I don't know. That's a wonderful question. I don't know. I think it was just, I was tired. Like I was tired of it and tired of being dragged down by it, and I was ready. I think a lot of the thing is when you're ready. And that's why maybe grade 13 for me would have been a good thing. But I think you just got to you have to have the mindset that you're ready to do it. And I don't think I was ready to do it until I was 21, 22. And I still worked jobs. I volunteered at the Score, but I still had to work up. My battery just said low. So I'm going to slide over and move this and plug in.
All right, I'll talk for a second, let you get readjusted, because you did just pause for a second there too with the battery lowing down. So you got a good little setup there, Timmy. I'm impressed. I'm impressed with Now some of those pictures, correct me if I'm wrong as well. Not the one on the top shelf you just mentioned your brother, but I'm trying to see what's behind you. Are those some of the photos that were the inspiration for some of the photos that ultimately landed in the Tim and Sid studio on the TV set?
Yeah, that was actually. I had done that for the Man Cave, and I thought that it would go well in a Hall of Fame. Better pictures, more money behind it. That's my high school football helmet right there. Shout out Senator O'Connor. That's Walter Payton right there. Gretzky and Messier. Lou Gehrig.
Yep.
Luckiest man alive. Bill Russell and Wilt backing up. And then Muhammad Ali over there. Shout out the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame, too. Because I got a lot of baseball love over here. And Willie Mays is over there.
Well, we'll get you to spin the camera around maybe before we go then. All right. So a cold call to the score. Is it John Melville? Is it Anthony Ciccone? Who gives you your shot? Is it Sansoni? Who's the first one?
John
Melville.
Melville, yeah. Yeah, John Melville was the guy. I walked into his office, and he said, what do you want to do? I just want to volunteer. He's like, what do you know about the station? I'm like, everything. I watched it all the time. I had like notes down. I had everything. I know everything. And he's like, all right, you start Thursday. I was like, what? And it's like, yeah. And I actually played hockey with my old man skate the day before my first day. And my brother high-sticked me in the face and cut me for 5 stitches right here. So the first day I went into the score, I had 5 stitches in my right here from playing hockey, and it was my brother who stuck me. So yeah, that's how it started.
So you start though on the Thursday. What does he have you doing? I mean,
so
that's pretty wild for him to literally say, "All right, here you go, fine, come in Thursday,
yeah.
You got a job."
So
what are you doing?
We sat in the suites, which was, if you remember the score, for those who remember the score, it was just the guys would voice over the highlights in the suites, and they would play all night. And so I would help them do their notes for the day of. And on my third day as an intern, they would have the interns. There's 3 interns per night, and you would go and you would stand in this area and wait to be assigned to a suite. And the third day or whatever, I'm kind of standing there awkwardly, and there's another dude there, and I go, are we in the right spot? Like, are you an intern? And he's like, I've been here like 6 weeks. Yeah, this is where you stand. It was Sid Sixero. Being a douchebag to me on my third day. And I'm like, all right, so I'm in the right spot. He's like, yeah, just relax. Hang with me, kid. Skinny Sid Sixero.
I'm trying to get the image out of my head right now, actually, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So, all right, how does it go then from, take me through intern to part-timer to full-timer? Because my take on the score was, at the time at least, and I, for those that have been watching the shows I've done to this point, you've probably heard the story before. But for me, the score was always from a distance because I was at the Fan, and it was at the Fan, and the score for me was what opened the door for me to go from intern to part-time to full-time in a real hurry, because Headline Sports starts up, and all of a sudden they're taking people from everywhere, from TV, from radio, and it's not just on-air guys, it's hosts, it's reporters, it's engineers, it's editors, right. And Elliot Friedman is one of the guys that goes, which opens the door within the Raptor world, and then things kind of take off from there. And
is that my freeze or your freeze?
I think it was you freezing again. Are you plugged in, or you're good to go?
No, I'm plugged in now. I should be good to go.
All right. But that to me was, are you good? Can you see me now? I'm not freezing or anything?
Yeah.
So that to me was where I made the leap because of the score, but from the opposite side, because of Elliot and other guys leaving. Yeah. So how did you kind of make that jump then and get things rolling?
Yeah, I feel like the bullpen at the Fan was like the suite in the score. Like if you were in the bullpen and shout out DK, who is chiming in here every once in a while, who ended up taping all the hockey cards to the wall in the bullpen, which made it legendary. But mine was there were a couple guys that took me under their wing. Coolius was really good to me. Damian Goddard was really good to me, and Greg Sansoni was really good to me. And the way the score worked was there was like 15 people doing all the work. And if you could ease the workload on those 15 people, they would co-sign you. So, man, I would just go whenever they let me. And like my first paying job, I remember I quit my Bell Mobility job for 2 $50 shifts a week. I was working like 40 hours there at the score, but I got 2 $50 paid. I moved back into my old man's house for $100 a week at the score because I had to, and I just would go whenever. And so I started writing a lot of this stuff. I would write all of the NFL previews. I was a producer more than I was anything else. I didn't care about being on air. And then someone told me, I forget the circumstance was Glennie Mack. Do you know Glenn McDonald, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Glennie Mack said to me, he goes, he's like, you want to be on air? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, well, be yourself because you're a good enough producer. So don't try and be something you're not on air. Just go see if it works. If it doesn't work, who cares? Just be a producer. You're good enough. And it gave me the confidence to go out there and do what I wanted to do on air, which was a little different than everyone else at the time. But, you know, it's kind of become a little bit more accepted now. But I was writing, I was producing, and this is over a couple of years. I kind of went from paid shifts to a couple more paid shifts to producing all of the NFL stuff there. I remember I did the Mike Bibby NBA draft prep, and I'd spent like, I don't know, like 3 weeks putting together my Rafe LaFrentz notes. And I think it was Scott Laughlin who was hosting it. And I gave him this.
Yeah, I remember Scotty.
I gave him this whole package of notes on that draft and handed it over to him. And then like literally the NBA delivered a package that night that was like 15 times what I had given him, but I'd spent 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And Scotty Laughlin, God bless his soul, he was such a good guy. He is such a good guy. He said, "Oh no, I'm gonna use yours, Tim. I'm gonna use yours," like just to pacify the poor little loser kid that was standing there going, "I just spent 3 weeks on this." Anyways, so
Do you remember your first on-air shift or on-air appearance when it finally did come?
not really.
Or one of your first?
I know that the only story I have for my first on-air shift was I was really proud to get there, but I was nervous as shit. And I put my hand, we had this big wooden desk at the score, and it was like Ricky Bobby, I don't know where to put my hands. And like I just put them on the desk in front of me, like this. And it did not move the entire, like, whatever, I don't know, it felt like 15 minutes, but it was probably like a 5-minute hit. And I had my hands like this, and I'm just holding them there. And I remember as it was done, I did okay. And like I lifted up my hands, and he was like it was like a suction, and there was like all wet, like handprints on, like it was just disgusting. Anyway, my hands just sweat, and I don't even remember what I did or how I did, but that was the first shift.
So how do you get from sweaty hands like doing this to a regular slot and to within the regular rotation and staying within that path now and not, as you said, Glennie Mack talked about, maybe making it back to producing? Because correct me if I'm wrong, and it was probably a lot like radio. You were likely still doing producing and writing and doing everything as you now are on air, but how does that then transition, and how did you get to the point where you felt comfortable enough that this was now a regular thing?
Yeah, we got so many reps on the score because you do the overnight wheel, and so I felt like my the packs that I would record overnight, like I got to a point where while I was a bit of a perfectionist and I probably took longer than a lot of people to do them, like I would watch and I'm like, my packs are way better than everybody else's. And I was just like, these are good. And so I'm going to be on air. It's just a matter of time. I just got to get my reps. And I don't know. I think like I got tossed around there pretty good. Like I was hosting with Greg Sansoni weeknights eventually. And then they put Martin Gaillard in there. And I was like, all right. Then they put me on weekends with Steve Coolius. And then they put Lisa Bowes in there. And I was like, oh, man. Like, I kept getting passed by. And I was like, all right, I'll just keep doing whatever I can do. And that's how I fell into a play-by-play. Was just like, all right, what's next? And they had volleyball in Calgary, the Dino Cup. And James Cebulski couldn't do it. So I was like, put me in. I'll do that. I love volleyball. So I did that. It was just kept working and just not taking no. Like I think smarter people might have been like, you just got replaced twice. Like, go away. You know what I mean? And that wasn't me. Even when we did the score tonight got turned off. I was like, I don't care. Sid was like blown, like he was like devastated and he was upset and he was mad. And I was like, I got like 5 other things that I'm doing right now. I'll just keep doing those and hopefully something good will. I should have been pissed. but I wasn't. I was just like,
Yeah, it's interesting though. I would say, I'm not just saying this because you're sitting here talking with me. I think I'd be more in your boat where things over the course of, you know, whether it be my career, your career, other people's career, you got to, you're not always going to get you're not always going to get either the fastballs down the middle or the lobs that you're just going to crank out. You're going to have to deal with some of those curveballs, and it's about how you keep moving and kind of ducking, or juke and jive, whatever, and see how you can just kind of stay within some sort of path, even if it's not the path you thought you'd be on. Can you stay on a path? So to be able to say, because now here you are, and you look back and think that's what we now are going to call experience. At the time, you might not recognize that it's experience, but you look at it now and say, I've produced, I've written,
yeah.
I've hosted, I've reported, I've anchored, play-by-play. You've worn 6, 7, 8 different hats within the industry, and now you're in your 40s, and you're saying, I've done so much in the industry. Hey, throw anything at me because I can do it.
Right. I do. I saw. I don't know if we blow up Scott Morrison, but he just said quarantine 2020. You need a good wall backdrop. Are we allowed to blow up what he does for a living, or do we just say?
Sure, why not?
Huh?
Why not?
He's an assistant coach with the Boston Celtics. Hey, so
Yeah.
Is this good, Scotty?
Hey, I will tell you this.
And one of those good dudes I met.
This couch isn't normally right here. This couch is normally about 6 feet that way, and this is like my kid's Lego cabinet. These pictures weren't here 3 weeks ago. These were sitting on a floor in a closet somewhere, and I legit had to create some sort of a backdrop. I've been in this house 6 years. There might be 4 pictures on the walls in the entire house.
Scotty, the best story about this is TV told me this wasn't good enough because the signal down here. This is my man cave.
Yeah.
And, the TV side of things said, nah, it's not good enough signal. You can't do it from down. I'm like, no, I built this thing for this very reason. Like this is the very. Anyways, so I got to do it upstairs, and I did a makeshift one up there where I moved stuff around, but. Yeah,
well, they got to send you with the Ethernet cable now, and then you drag the Ethernet cable down and you hardwire. Everybody's going hardwire now. It's like we're going back in time 10, 15 years, getting off the Wi-Fi so we can hardwire in. Yeah, see, try the man cave now with the hardwire. It'll be all good. All right, you brought up the score tonight, and you also mentioned Sid Sixero as a 6-week-long intern with you on night one. How did that partnership come together then to the point where you guys now are both young dudes, interns, eventually on air, eventually partner together, and here you are, a decade plus later, nearly 2 decades later, as this 1-2 punch that have been kind of joined at the hip in a lot of ways.
Yeah, still stuck together. To be honest, we were in the suites together at the same time, and there was this kinship at the score that I don't know you could replicate anywhere else. Like if you talk to anyone, you've done it before. You talk to guys at the score, and for some reason there's just like a bond between whoever made it through the score because it was such hard work. If you got through there and were respected, you knew your shit. So Sid was there. I was there. I respected his work. I enjoyed listening to his stuff all the time. And one day they just put us together, and we both had the same idea that we'll just have fun with this and see how it goes. And there was kind of a chemistry that I hadn't felt with anyone else. And I had worked with a bunch of other people before then. Sansoni I had really good chemistry with too. I'm not just saying that because he's an exec at Sportsnet right now and probably could destroy me if he wanted to. But we had good chemistry. But Sid was just different. It was like we're both around the same age. The references were always, even if he made the most obscure reference, I would get it. Even if I made the most obscure reference, he would get it. And then there was like this, you could feel the energy, like 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th time they put us together. The building would be watching. And that was the ultimate compliment, was like the building was kind of jacked. And I was like, oh shit, we got something here. If the building's watching, then, like all the hardcore fans that are in the building, if they're watching, we got something here. And so I was like, we should do this more often. And then they kept putting us on together. And eventually we got Score Tonight, which was kind of both of our really big breaks.
You know what I found interesting about you guys, and still even do to this day, and I say this as a viewer, not even as a colleague, as a viewer, what I liked back in the day, what I still like to this day, is that I find that oftentimes in sports, and I can think of a couple examples off the top of my head, and it might not be fair to just use a couple examples, but like back in the day on CNN, when CNN did CNN Sports and Calling All Sports, and you had Nick Charles and Fred Hickman. It's not that Nick Charles wasn't funny or couldn't be funny or didn't have a personality, but Fred Hickman might be more of the kind of quirkier guy, or Jim Taddy and Don Martin. Don Martin had a dry sense of humor, but Don was a bit more of a straight man, whereas Jim might have some fun, whereas Jim maybe wasn't having as much fun back when it was Hebscher, who was maybe a little quirkier. It always seems like there needs to be one guy that's more of a straight guy, one guy that's more of the funny guy.
Right.
With you guys, I find that there's a balance of both, because the personalities, and I guess you kind of you addressed this earlier in terms of just being yourself. You can be serious, but you can be funny. You can have a sense of humor. You can have a different verbiage or language and a different cadence and style, but then you can also conduct a serious interview or also go do play-by-play or whatever. And that's where I appreciate the fact that you can still kind of play both roles, where it doesn't need to be one guy's Johnny Carson, one guy's Ed McMahon, one guy's Conan O'Brien, one guy's Andy Richter. You can kind of have both guys being both and play off one another, as opposed to having such rigid, strict roles within how you're formulating and ultimately executing your show, whatever it may be.
Right. I agree with that. And I think to a certain extent, like when I was with Sansoni, I was the funny guy. And then I would work with Sid. And I was like, well, I can't not be the funny guy, but I can't be the funny guy because, one, I think he's funnier than I am. And
right.
Two, if you're both trying to be funny at the same time, it's just, if you're both, I mean, we do it a lot where we'll race to the same joke, or I'll hit the joke and then he hits it 7 more times. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So you kind of got it, like there's a balance, and sometimes we lose the balance, and I think that's part of the fun. Sometimes we rein back because we want to have some serious chats, but I knew right away that I wasn't going to be the funny guy on that show or with Sid, but I wasn't going to change. But I think it's annoying when you have two guys trying to be funny, right?
Yeah, you can't be trying to one up each other and trying to outdo one another.
Yeah. So, and it was always fun because we'd have Caddy on too a lot back then. So then now it's like 3 guys. It's like, I mean, we used to do those the Tuesday traditions, plays of the week, and Cabby on the street, and it started as a Monday tradition. Can you just shout out Notre Dame and Burlington? So
yeah, Ben, my guy Ben. I've seen him mentioned it a couple times, but I've met Ben and know his mom as well. So Ben, good to see you, and yes, shout out to Notre Dame and Burlington.
Yes, you went to Notre Dame and Burlington, right?
I did. I did.
Yeah. Some pretty good athletes out of Notre Dame and Burlington. Not a bad football team.
Yeah, Burlington's over the years turned into a pretty good hotbed for football and basketball at a lot of different schools. But Notre Dame was we had some good athletes. We had some real good athletes. It was M.M. Robinson, Nelson, Pearson a little bit to a lesser extent, Assumption. But yeah, the big 3 were probably Notre Dame, M.M. and Nelson. No doubt. All right, I'm glazing through a lot, but we only have about 15 minutes as well. I wanted to mention just quickly, just seeing as we were on the topic, and I've never asked you this. Going from the hosting to the play-by-play, back to the hosting, the anchoring, the reporting, I'm interested. This is me asking the question for my own sake, too. The thing that I've found. What's that?
You do that.
Well, and this is what I'm asking you. I want your opinion on this. I have found that, so I went from pre-app and post on the radio, hosting evening shows, doing some odd TV appearances here and there. My personality, I find, is sometimes difficult to, it's not that I'm being fake by any means, but you can have fun on a broadcast, on a play-by-play, and you should have fun. It needs to be entertaining. But I think within the context of a basketball broadcast, because it's so fast-paced, it's so quick-moving, and because it's radio, not television, you don't necessarily have time to get into jokes And you have to deliver the goods. You have to paint the picture. You have to call the game, period. So as time's gone on and I've done the broadcast more, I feel like who I am as a man, one-on-one, when you guys, you and I are just sitting having a beer or having a chat like this, it doesn't always translate through into the broadcast. And then you take the headset off, you go pick up the camera, or pick up the microphone, and you go on camera for a Sportsnet hit, and it's shirt and tie, in a suit, very structured, reporting the news of the game. You don't get that chance to sort of let your personality come out. So I oftentimes will feel like, man, like, I'm not going to ever be Cabby. I'm not ever going to be Sid. But I want to sometimes be a little bit lighter, a little bit looser, have a little bit more fun. But you get sort of slotted into, no, but this is what you are, and that's kind of what you got to do. How difficult was that for you then to go in and out of basketball play-by-play, football play-by-play, volleyball play-by-play, then anchor, do highlights, do a show, and to still kind of be true to what you are within those roles, whatever you might be doing?
I think it's a little easier with TV. I think you hit the nail on the head early when you said radio. Because when I did radio play-by-play for the Hamilton Tiger Cats.
Yeah.
And I tried to be the guy I was on TV, and you don't have time. You literally don't have time because you've got to paint the picture for everybody. Now you can throw some lines in there when, like the rock to the rack with the hack and you're trying to just within the framework of it, you could throw a little bit. Like I would always try and throw a little bit of that in there, but you never had the time. I just did it. I did what came naturally, and I'll adjust to whoever I'm working with, and I'll adjust. Like I always felt like my best role was putting other people in the position to succeed. Putting other people in the position to succeed.
I got you.
I think I screwed it up 3 times. So that was the way I looked at it. Was okay. Find your role, be good at it, and if you can have fun and be yourself, then do that, but find your role and be good at it first. And then the rest, you know what I mean? So I think when I did Ticats play-by-play, that was probably the straightest that I ever was because you just didn't have time to fool around. And when you get more comfortable, the times that you can fool around. Like you and Jonesy have gotten to the point where when the time is that you can fool around, and when the time is where it's straight.
All right, we got about 10 minutes left here. I don't know if you've done one of these things for a full hour, but it literally kicks you off. Like you get a 30-second warning. It doesn't give you 2 minutes, 5 minutes. It's like 30 seconds, you're done.
You're an hour past my bedtime, homeboy.
I know, and that's not a joke either.
No.
Timmy wrote me earlier. He said, "Was this on at 9?" I said, "No, 10." He's like, "Dude, I go to bed at 10." I go to bed at 10. I'm going to bed at like 2.
Yeah.
And I appreciate somebody's stealth. I don't know what your first name is, but thank you very much. I appreciate the shout out and the props. I'm glazing over a lot of score years because I want to get to the Sportsnet years because I want to tell this story. And I think we've talked about this before. I think when you guys were coming to the Fan, but you weren't officially at the Fan yet.
Yeah.
How long was that non-compete or that little hiatus? Was it 6 months?
6 months, yeah.
6 months. So Don Collins had come in. I just had lunch with Don in San Francisco a month ago, just before we left San Fran to go to Utah, and then the world, erupted.
Yeah.
So the former program director of the Fan, and when Don Collins came in, and Don had ultimately made the decision that there needs to be something different going on in the afternoon, right? And because Jack Armstrong, we did that afternoon show from 1 to 4 for 2 years. It was Jack and Doug McLean. Then Doug McLean went full-time TV. Then I took over for Doug. It became Jack and I. And then I remember getting called in, and it was, you're going to be off the 1 to 4 show now. You need to pick. It's going to be Raptors broadcast or it's going to be the show. You can't be doing both because we can't have a show where the host is never around, which made sense. I was missing, 8, 9 months of the year. So we're gonna make a change. We're going in a different direction. But nobody was saying anything, and even I didn't know at the time. It's like, well, what's the new show? We'll figure that out later. But you're just gonna be focused on basketball, and you're traveling and whatever else. That's it. Like, okay, fine. So hey, at least I'm still employed and I still got a good gig, and fine. I'm not doing the daily show anymore. As it turns out, because of the work stoppage in the NBA. After Jack went his separate way, I was still an employee. So literally the next week after I had been essentially let go from the show, I was back on the show on the Monday, still hosting 1 to 4, but I'm just not the official host anymore. And they brought Jonesy in for a couple of months, then they brought a couple other people. The last day of the NBA lockouts, the last day, they came to a deal on the Friday in like the first or second week of December. They came to a deal on the Friday. Camps were going to open on the Monday. Tim and Sid day one was on the Monday. So I literally did that show for pretty much your entire hiatus and I probably found out about a month earlier and I was read the riot act. Don't say a word. It's Tim Micallef and Sid Sixera. They're coming over. And I think, people had already started to kind of figure things out. But it could not have worked out perfectly for myself, let alone for the station, that I still did the show like for 5 months after being told it's no longer your show. Oh, but by the way, you're still the fill-in guy for the next 5 months. And the last day of the NBA labor issues was on the Friday, and boom, you guys take over on that Monday. And I remember just thinking for myself selfishly, this couldn't have worked out better, but for you guys as well, that hit the ground running. And man, what a ride that was, and still is, but certainly was for those few years when it was just radio before you guys ultimately transitioned back into TV, just knocking it out all the time. You had to have loved what you guys were doing for those few years when it was just banging out the radio every day.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and we had the ability to stretch our legs a lot. And by the way, that 6 months where the score said you couldn't go on the Fan, I was so mad at the time. It was the greatest 6 months of my life. I worked a little bit and I did some stuff at the score. I did the OUA season at the score, and my son was just born, so it was 6 months with my son. Which is now 10 years ago. Crazy. Anyways, yeah, it was just so much fun, and we had 3 hours. I had no idea what we were going to do with the 3 hours. I didn't even it was just I looked at it like TV. We're going to produce all of this stuff. And we got there, and I was like, you don't have anyone to help you. Who do you think's going to do all this work? and if anyone knows Sixera, it wasn't him. But it was so much fun, to name that wrestler, and we were so much different than what Bob was doing at the time, and it was because we didn't know what the bleep we were doing on radio that I think caused that to be different. Shout out Jeff Azaparty and Lance Kennedy, because they just kind of came with us, and they were so good about just doing whatever the hell we wanted. We were doing those countdown to kickoffs where we would play Name That Tune. I don't know if you remember, just
I do.
Stuff I don't even, we had Stephen Brunt reading hip hop lyrics, and the anthem singer Michael Chufo sang hip hop lyrics for us. We were just doing stuff that I don't even know if I thought it was going to be good or not, but it worked out. It was so much fun.
How difficult was it to take that and then bring it into the television realm?
Oh, I don't think we ever have.
I think you have.
I don't know.
Maybe not fully, but I think you have. I think in my opinion, as a viewer, I think there's large portions of what you guys are doing that I can still see the radio showing. I don't know if people would agree, but I believe so.
Yeah, I think our hardcores, I think there's a lot of them that felt like it changed too much. But we did get a lot more people watching coast to coast, and so I wish we could do the things like Name That Wrestler and Countdown to Kickoff that we can't do on TV because it's too tight and there's too many constraints, and there's too many people who want old school TV to be the show versus just free flow stuff. So I think we're still trying. There's a give and a take. An hour and a half versus 3 hours, 2 hours depending on the day. So, I think we're constantly trying to get there, but I don't know if we ever got there. I should have.
Have you enjoyed then coming back on the radio as much as you don't want it to happen based on the way it has happened because of the pandemic? Has it been kind of fun to be back in just the radio realm?
I was on vacation. So my son got his tonsils and adenoids out just before all this hit.
Yeah.
So my wife took a week and I took a week on March break so that I could help her with taking care of him. So I was off, and Sid was doing 3 hours a day alone during a global pandemic. And I'm I did not volunteer to do 3 hours a day during a global pandemic. Like, what's going on here? And so when we came back, it felt like normal again. It's still weird. Like, it's weird. I mean, you just go on and there's no sports and you're just trying to talk. Like it doesn't feel like 3 hours. It feels like we're having fun and we're just talking to dudes. But we haven't done I can't do any of the pre-produced stuff that we always used to do, which I had a lot of fun doing. But I think we might actually get a countdown to kick off in tomorrow. So to the people that are watching right now, tune in tomorrow. We might get a countdown to kick off.
Well, we only got a couple minutes left. I'll end this with this, and I think I might even said this to you guys when I was on the show with you a couple of days ago or last week or whatever it was. I actually have found not just your show, but most of the shows across the board more entertaining now than they were a month or two ago, because of the fact that even as a sports guy, I'm not always interested in the X's and O's of what went right last night, what went wrong, what do you need to do tomorrow, who's the next opponent, what's coming up. To me, stuff like what we've done right now, having players, coaches, broadcasters, writers on your show, just having conversations about life, big picture, guys' careers, just talking to them on a more of a human level than just, athlete, coach level, whatever. Just having, like I said, just having conversations. I find this stuff more entertaining than last game, next season, whatever. I think it's been great. And the fact that you guys have been pumping out the content, I've enjoyed it more than I have in a long time. And I worked a lot during 9/11 in the weeks that followed, but this has gone on as long, if not longer, and unfortunately looks like it's going to go on even longer. And in a weird, warped way, as much as I want the world back to normal, I'm enjoying what I'm listening to, and I hope I can continue to have content for me, selfishly, as a listener, to listen to stuff like that.
Yeah, I've actually enjoyed it, and it's given me my normalcy. And I don't know how many people are listening, and I know that there's people just jumping out here right now. But if you're looking for something to just put on in the background to distract you, the whole lineup on The Fan has been awesome, and I've been listening to a lot of it. And it's the same with the sports. Like, I'm not even watching these old games really, but they're on in the background. I'm not putting the news
25 seconds.
Yeah, I'm just watching this stuff because it makes me feel normal again. Comforting voice.
All right. See, so I'm telling you, Instagram kills me, man. You don't even get a minute warning. You get a 30-second warning. So I had to cut you off.
Everybody. Thank you for having me, and thanks for everyone sticking around for this whole
thing. Yeah, thanks for doing this, Timmy. And again, thanks to all of you that joined in and watched as well. If this goes on long, you're coming back for a second episode. Take care, man.